You ever think your worst enemy would be the person living right next door? Well, let me tell you about the day I walked into my driveway, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, only to have police lights flashing in my face because my neighbor swore I had stolen my own car. Yeah, that was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with an annoying neighbor. I was living next to a ticking time bomb. My name's David Carter, and cars are my life. My grandfather built engines, my dad fixed transmissions. Me? I grew up with grease under my nails before I could even drive. So when my marriage ended and I scraped enough money together to buy a little brick house in Maplewood Heights, a quiet HOA neighborhood, I thought, finally, a place to breathe, a place to start over. And in that garage sat the one thing keeping me sane, my 1968 Mustang Fastback. She wasn't just a car. She was my therapy. Bought her as a rusted hunk of metal for $3,000. I poured 18 months into her. New V8 engine, rebuilt transmission, suspension overhaul, paint so slick you could see your soul in it. Every bolt, every gasket I restored with my own hands. That car wasn't just mine. It was me. But then there was Victoria Hale, president of the HOA, realtor, and self-appointed queen of Maplewood Heights. Victoria drove a spotless white Mercedes, never missed a salon appointment, and walked around with that fake smile that could cut glass. The kind of person who believed the world revolved around her manicure schedule. She'd been running the HOA unopposed for years because nobody else wanted the job of neighborhood dictator, and she loved it. She lived for handing out violation notices like party invitations. Trash bins left out 5 minutes too long? Fine. Your fence 1 inch higher than regulation? Fine. She once measured my grass with an actual ruler and claimed it was over the height limit. I laughed it off at first, but I should have known. Victoria wasn't the type to laugh. One evening, I'm in my garage bleeding brake lines, hands covered in oil, when I hear her heels clicking across my driveway. "Excuse me," she said, arms folded tight, "there's a noise ordinance in this community. Power tools after 6 p.m. are strictly prohibited." I wiped my hands, kept calm. City ordinance actually says 9 p.m. I double-checked. Her smile turned into ice. "We'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity brings property values down." Industrial activity? Like I was running a junkyard instead of restoring history? That was my first real taste of Victoria's venom. But things were about to get worse. Much worse. A couple weeks later, I overheard her at one of her fancy backyard wine parties. Laughing, showing photos on her phone. "Oh yes," she bragged, "that's the new Mustang I just bought. $48,000. Should be delivered next week." I froze, because the car in those photos was my car. My blood, my sweat, my Saturdays and Sundays. She was already building a story in her head that my Mustang belonged to her. Saturday evening, I pulled into my driveway after grabbing some brake fluid. The rumble of that V8 echoed off the houses, deep, powerful, alive. And there she was, Victoria, standing in her driveway like a statue, arms crossed, staring daggers through me. I nodded politely. She didn't move, didn't blink, just burned holes through my car like she was willing it to disappear. The next night, police sirens screamed down the street. 2 squad cars slammed to a stop outside my house. I stood there in shock as 4 officers piled out like I was an armed robber. "Sir, step away from the vehicle. We received a report of a stolen car at this address." "What?" I stammered. "This is my car, my house, my garage." And then, like a vulture circling prey, Victoria appeared beside them, phone still in her hand, voice dripping with smugness. "That's him. That's the thief. He stole my car yesterday. I paid $45,000 for it." You ever been accused of something so insane you almost laugh, except you can't because the wrong word could ruin your life? I swallowed my anger, remembered my dad's words. Documentation beats desperation every time. "Officers, give me 1 minute," I said. My hand shook as I grabbed the thick binder from my garage. Photos, receipts, VIN numbers, insurance records, everything. Officer Ramirez flipped through my photos, his brow rising. "Rusted shell to rolling chassis to gleaming perfection?" he murmured. "That's some serious work here. You built this?" "Family business," I said, voice steady, even though my heart was hammering. Meanwhile, Victoria was shoving dealer website photos into another officer's face. Stock images, with no VIN, no paperwork, just glossy pictures she'd clearly printed that afternoon. The contrast was laughable, except it wasn't funny. That moment, I realized how close I came to losing everything. If I hadn't documented every bolt, if I hadn't kept receipts, if I hadn't taken photos, I could have been in handcuffs, all because my neighbor decided my car should be hers. The police left, shaking their heads, warning Victoria about false reports, but I knew this wasn't over. By Monday morning, a letter was waiting in my mailbox. Notice of violation, unauthorized commercial vehicle storage, $200 fine. My work van. A basic white Ford Transit with Carter Auto Repair painted on the side. She wanted me gone, wanted me buried under fines until I had no choice but to sell. But I wasn't just going to roll over. I dug through county records, found that my van was grandfathered in, purchased years before their stupid new rules. She had no legal ground. I filed an appeal, attached proof, and hand-delivered it to the HOA office. The receptionist glanced at it, her eyes widening. Oh dear, Victoria isn't going to like this. Good. Over the next week, it became clear. Victoria was obsessed. She circled my house during her morning jogs, snapped photos with her phone, measured my fence line with a ruler like a lunatic. Violation notices piled up like junk mail, noise, smells, imaginary oil stains. But this time, I was ready. I installed 4 security cameras, every angle of my property, 24/7 cloud backup. That's when I caught her sneaking into my driveway at 2 a.m., scattering nails across the concrete like a deranged saboteur. She wanted my tires slashed, wanted me trapped. But I had her on video. That's when I stopped being the hunted and became the hunter. See, Victoria thought she was untouchable. What she didn't realize was that her paper trail wasn't as clean as she believed. A few hours at the county courthouse, and I found it. She'd been bleeding the HOA dry, paying fake companies that all trace back to her address, landscaping jobs that never happened, legal fees funneled to her ex-husband's firm, over $90,000 stolen. And the kicker? Her own house was in foreclosure. She hadn't paid HOA dues in a year. The queen of community standards was drowning in debt. Suddenly, everything made sense. Her desperation, her lies, her obsession with pushing me out. She wasn't just a Karen on a power trip. She was a cornered animal. I wasn't alone. Turns out, half the neighborhood had been harassed by Victoria. Mailbox fonts, kids' basketball hooks, even flower gardens fined for being non-standard. We started meeting in my buddy Tom's garage. A mechanic, a lawyer, a teacher, an accountant. We became an army. We documented everything, built timelines, filed reports, and then we set the trap. Victoria panicked, filed more false complaints, tried to bribe neighbors, even broke into the HOA office to shred evidence, caught on camera, floodlight blazing. When the cops finally cuffed her, mascara running, screaming about how she was protecting the community, it was over. At her trial, the evidence was undeniable. Embezzlement, harassment, false reports. She wasn't just a bad neighbor. She was a criminal. The judge's gavel came down hard. Prison time, restitution, her real estate license revoked. The same woman who tried to ruin my life lost everything. 6 months later, Maplewood Heights is a different place. Kids play in the street again, neighbors barbecue together. The air feels lighter without Victoria's shadow looming over us. My Mustang still shines in the driveway, not just a car anymore,
but a reminder that sometimes the only way to beat a bully is to stand your ground. And the best part? Every restitution check Victoria writes from her prison job comes back to us, the same community she tried to destroy. So what's the lesson? Document everything, don't face it alone, and remember, power only works if people stay silent. Victoria thought she could weaponize the system, the police, the HOA. But in the end, truth wins. And my Mustang? She purrs louder than ever.